Stop me if you've heard this one before. As a child, Abraham Lincoln loses his mother to a brutal supernatural force, which later inspires him to gather knowledge of this force and try to eradicate it from the United States. Nope, I'm not talking about Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I'm talking about Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies, the new action horror movie from our friends at the Asylum. The Asylum is a film studio devoted to making mockbusters, those straight-to-DVD cheapos that are designed to look like whatever new blockbuster is about to come out. Some of the movies produced by the Asylum include Transmorphers, The Day the Earth Stopped, and a personal favorite, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. And yes, those are dinosaurs and a kraken on the cover of a Sherlock Holmes movie. It only gets more ridiculous from there. So, needless to say, despite the wonderfully descriptive title, I had absolutely no idea what to expect when I watched Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies. So I was actually quite surprised that the movie itself turned out to be a fairly straightforward period zombie thriller. Not just that, the straightforward period zombie thriller that really wasn't that bad. The makeup is good, the period details feel mostly authentic, and there are as many scenes of zombies eating people being slashed and shot up as you would want. In fact, the only thing that screws it all up is the inclusion of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln is played in this movie by Bill Oberst Jr., sort of John Hawkes lookalike, whose only previous big acting experiences I can find are a role in The Secret Life of Bees and that stupid Spike TV show 1,000 Ways to Die. Now, he's covered up with so much goofy makeup that you might actually think he's a zombie at first, but he ends up giving a decent, if unconvincing, performance.
Because the Battle of Gettysburg was significant, and it must be recognized.
I don't see why.
There were 50,000 casualties. And the dedication of that mass grave's an event I must attend. I've been asked to speak.
What is there of use to say over the bodies of dead young men?
It's my belief that our victory there was a turning point in the war. I wish to deliver a message of unification and hope.
Now, the plot of the movie involves Abraham Lincoln, well, as you saw, he was kind of in the process of trying to write the Gettysburg Address, being alerted by Edwin Stanton that a secret attempt to capture a Confederate fort has led to failure. And after he visits the one sole survivor of the fort, who's kind of in the process of being transformed from a human to a zombie, he describes to Lincoln and Stanton and some of the other people who are there how his entire squadron was ripped apart by, these zombified soldiers, both Union and Confederate, how they ate their flesh and just slaughtered the entire company. It's really a very effective scene, a very chilling scene. It gives you a sense of how good this movie could have been had the studio actually bothered to make it something other than just a simple, cheap and mockbuster. Well, anyway, Lincoln has experience involving zombies. As I previously mentioned, his mother was killed by one. Actually, he had to kill his mother because she became a zombie, and his father was driven to suicide by this. No historical accuracy here. But anyway, having all this knowledge of the zombie that he has gathered since his childhood, Lincoln decides to lead a crack squad of Secret Service operatives to try to investigate that fort and see exactly what happened and possibly take it back. And never mind that the Secret Service wasn't really around until 5 days before the end of the Civil War, and never really mind that even when they were around in the earliest days, they're only meant to find counterfeiters, but hey, who cares? His squad includes a few generic warrior types of various levels of patriotism, a token black guy named, of course, Mr. Brown, and, oh yeah, a shady character named John Wilkinson, who was handy with a pistol and mentions that he would like to return to acting once the war is over. Nope, no odds on that guy having any secrets. No sirree, Bob. Well, anyway, the problem with this movie is that in an attempt to justify, the presence of Abraham Lincoln when any, fictional 19th century zombie-killing badass would do, the screenplay tries to play sort of historical inside joke grab bag, I guess we're supposed to believe that Lincoln developed the Gettysburg Address through his experiences in leading this anti-zombie squad, this whatever the fort is supposed to be. But the way they do this is by, awkwardly shoe-handing some of the more memorable lines, words, quotes from the Gettysburg Address into the dialogue. And from both Lincoln and some of the other characters. These are moments of flowery period language and historical shoutouts, but they often feel completely inappropriate given the setting and context. Not to mention the much mentioned idiocy in this movie historically. At one point, for instance, Lincoln shouts, "Once more unto the breach," while in the middle of a battle. Now, this line, of course, comes from Shakespeare, Henry V. Now, Lincoln was a fan of Shakespeare, but we are not told anything about that in this movie, so what it seems is that they just threw it in there because it sounded, historic, right? And not knowing that it was a line attributed to Shakespeare, not to Lincoln. I'm not sure if this is the case or not, but that's what it feels like, and just to really sign just how sloppy some of the dialogue is in this thing. Well, anyway, the historical grab bag of this movie does not only apply to the dialogue, it also applies to some of the characters, like lots of these sort of tongue-in-cheek historical thrillers. We get lots of real-life historical characters in insignificant or really just kind of weird parts. For instance, we have Stonewall Jackson, played as an over-the-top Southern caricature who was devoted completely to the Confederate cause and will barely talk to Lincoln until his inevitable scene of redemption.
What we need to do is to kill all these zombies.
Zombies? Well, that sounds like slave talk to me, sir.
Pat Garrett, as a soldier of Jackson's who teamed up with Lincoln to slay the zombies.
How do you come to be fighting on the wrong side of history?
I was born in Alabama. Grew up on a plantation in Haynesville. That's in Louisiana. I'm no supporter of slavery, Mr. President, but down there it is a way of life. When all the men in my family and parish started to join up, it just seemed the thing to do. I was young.
And now?
Well, this zombie affliction, as Mr. Brown calls it, it's got me in the mind of slavery. It's wrong, but it's here. Should be dead, but it lives on. And if we don't find a way to stop it, not only will it tear this country to pieces, but it'll be the end of life as we know it.
You're wise beyond your years, Mr. Garrett. I wonder, what are your plans when this great conflagration ends?
Thinking about heading out west and becoming a cowboy, sir.
You could have an impressive career in politics, or criminal justice, should you so choose.
And Mary Owens, an old flame of Lincoln's who has descended into prostitution and who is trying to wait out the plague with her daughter.
As soon as I get Mr. Hopkins bandaged, we can go.
Mr. Wilkinson will lead you directly to the fort. We'll meet you there. Fret not, Miss Owens.
I rarely do, Mr. Lincoln.
And believe it or not, there's even a young Teddy Roosevelt in this movie, who's always eager to fight the zombies and also serves as a catalyst for perhaps the movie's biggest single laugh.
I'm sorry we don't have a spare weapon for you. Here. As you go, walk softly and carry this big stick.
Now, as I previously mentioned, the actual zombie element of this movie is actually rather effective. The zombies themselves follow your basic Romero zombie logic, mindless flesh eaters to infect those they bite or scratch. Although there is something a little bit different in this movie. The zombies seem to be almost entirely deaf, so as long as you're quiet, you can walk right on past them. And this kind of removes the suspense a little bit, because when they're hunting zombies, they can just walk up and slice their heads off. But anyway, the special effects are surprisingly good, given the limitations here. Although there are some kind of obvious makeup or obvious digital effects, but that's not really that big of a deal. And the characters, they're not really spouting some of the more idiotic dialogue or historical mumbo-jumbo, actually do seem to fit within the period setting. I also liked how it was, Mr. Brown, token black guy, first describes the Walking Dead as zombies, and then explains the connection to the mythology.
They act like zombies.
Wait, what?
Zombies, a Bantu word I learned from my mother. Zombies were corpses, brought back to life by magic, but they were only used as slaves. They weren't like this.
I too prefer regular slaves. Thank you kindly.
Doesn't exactly get the mythology right, of course, but hey, points for trying. Well, anyway, the success of these scenes comes largely, I think, from the fact that this time around, the Asylum hired a real, professional director, in the form of a man named Richard Schenkman, He's best known for making an acclaimed low-budget sci-fi picture entitled Man from Earth, which also became famous because it was one of the first movies that was largely distributed digitally, meaning essentially that Richard Schenkman had absolutely no problem with people pirating his movie. So if you want to check it out, it's sort of a time travel or immortality-based sort of movie that was really well received. I say if you're interested in that sort of thing, you should check it out. Especially because Schenkman has proved here in this movie that he's actually able to make a very effective 19th century zombie picture on a budget of only around a reported $150,000. This really makes me want to see him have another go at making a real movie again. So, I say if you can stand some completely and utterly implausible plotting, dialogue that goes beyond the level of cheesy, and acting that ranges from decent to wooden to over-the-top hilarious, I say this movie is worth checking out. It fits very solidly, in my view, to the category of so bad it's good. So, if you like this sort of thing, watch it. You'll probably enjoy yourselves. Just don't expect to find any real insights into who Abraham Lincoln was as a result of watching it.